Hello and welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. A very warm welcome from my living room in Switzerland to wherever you are in the world. My name is Isabelle. I play the harp and I tell stories, and I'm delighted to share some tales and tunes with you today. We're living in strange times, aren't we? For example, today, the sun is shining bright in a clear blue sky. The birds are singing in the trees, and wherever I look, I see tiny, fragrant, colorful explosions of blossoms like fireworks. Nature is celebrating its return back to life, but there's no one really around to celebrate along because we're all staying inside to keep ourselves and others safe. It is a time of fear and uncertainty for all of us, I'd say. But to me, the beauty of life is that wherever you find darkness, you will also find light. And so I'm touched and very honored to be part of this World Storytelling Cafe, this worldwide festival of storytelling. It's really weaving a glittering thread of hope and inspiration and comfort around the entire world. And speaking of comfort, I hope that wherever you are, that you're settled comfortably with a cup of tea or a mug of hot chocolate or maybe even a glass of wine and a biscuit. And now sit back and relax and let's embark to the magical land of stories on the wings of music. I grew up in a small town in Switzerland called Zug, and I'm still living there to this day. It is nestled between a mountain and a lake, and many years ago, this town consisted only of a handful of rows of houses lined up behind each other by the lakeshore. And the first row of the houses was built so close to the lake that the houses would have only had to take one step and they would have tumbled into the water. And at that time, there were two kinds of people living in the town of Zug. The people on the land and the people in the lake. They knew of each other. And so a child playing by the shore might have found a doll among the driftwood, a doll with a fishtail instead of legs and seaweed for hair. Or a fisherman doing his work out on the lake might have seen a glimmering fishtail dart beneath his boat, a fishtail much bigger than a fish. But that fisherman would have only shrugged and carried on with his day, because the general rule was that the two people, they knew of each other, but they didn't interact. However, as you and I both know, there is always one exception to every rule. And in this case, the exception was the youngest daughter of the king of the lake and a young fisherman from the town of Zug. They were in love. And it was a love brighter than the sun above the town and deeper than the lake. But when her father, the king of the lake, found out, he was furious. The lake was boiling when he summoned his daughter, and when she appeared in front of him, he thundered, "You have betrayed me. You have betrayed us. You are not allowed to ever see that young man again." Now the princess, she was a headstrong girl, but she also knew when it was in her own best interest to obey her father's orders. And so she didn't say a word. She just swam back to her room, and there she wept and wept and wept that the lake water tasted salty for 2 weeks. There she wept and there she stayed, and she grew quieter and quieter and thinner and thinner. And her father, he watched her and he watched her and he watched her until he reached the conclusion that he loved his daughter more than he loved his rules. And so he summoned her again, and this time the surface of the lake remained perfectly still. "I have reconsidered," he said when she appeared in front of him. "You are allowed to see that young fisherman again, but there are conditions. He has to marry you. He has to come and live with you on the lake, and he is not allowed to go back to the shore ever again." Now the young princess, she began to cry again, but this time there were tears of joy. She threw her arms around her father, and then she swam back to the shore quick as lightning. There, the young fisherman was already waiting for her. He was pining for her. Every single day since they last met, he'd gone down to the shore before the sun rose. All day long he'd looked out onto the water to see if he could find his love. And every night he only returned home after the sun had set. His father had given up arguing with him. His mother was still wringing her hands in despair, and his grandmother, well, his grandmother would only look out onto the lake every once in a while and quietly shake her head. And when he saw his love emerge from the water, oh, he was overjoyed. And didn't the sun rise a second time that day where the two lovers embraced? "We can be together," the princess said. "We can get married. You can come live with me on the lake. You can't go back to the shore, but our deepest wish has come true. We can spend the rest of our lives together. If you say yes, and oh, I hope that you will say yes, I have a magic potion for you that will enable you to breathe underwater. My love, what do you say?" And the young man, in reply, he took the little bowl from his lover's hands. He removed the stopper and drank the magic potion with one sip. He followed her into the lake, and there in her father's castle they were married. The celebration of their wedding lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and they were very, very happy. Unfortunately, that was not their happy ever after, because after a little while, after the first excitement had worn off, the young fisherman began to miss his family, his friends, his dog, and he knew that he could never see them again. And so he grew quieter and quieter and thinner and thinner. And his wife, the princess, she watched him and she watched him and she watched him. And she came to the conclusion that she had to do something. And so she devised a plan. One night, early in March, when the whole town of Zug was fast asleep, the earth, deep beneath the town, began to rumble. The ground began to shake. The houses began to tremble. Cracks formed at the bottom of the walls and quickly crept up the walls. And then with one gigantic crash, the whole first row of houses fell into the lake. For the town of Zug, this was a catastrophe of previously unknown proportions. An entire row of houses gone, 1/3 of the population killed. Well, if only they had known that not a single person died. Because you see, the night before this all happened, the princess of the lake, she came back onto the shore and she exchanged the water in every single fountain with her magic potion. And so, when the inhabitants of that first row of houses were thrown out of their beds as the houses crashed into the lake and water came streaming in the broken windows, they all found to their own amazement that they could breathe underwater, and they swam out of their broken houses, and there they discovered the magical town at the bottom of the lake. And if the celebration of the wedding between the young fisherman and the princess of the lake lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, the celebration of the reunion of the young fisherman with his family and his friends lasted a fortnight. And this really was their happy ever after. However, after this incident, the people from the lake were never seen back on the shore again. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years, years into decades, and decades turned into centuries. And soon, the people of the lake became a legend. They became the stuff that stories were made of. But I did tell you that I grew up here, and I will let you in on a little secret. Come close. When you go down to the lake on a quiet, clear and sunny day, when the lake lies as calm as a sheet of glass, you can still see the rooftops of the king's castle glisten beneath the surface of the water. And if you listen really closely, you can still hear the festive music from the royal court. began to tell stories in the year of 2012. After a series of serendipitous events, really, I spent a couple of months with Liz Weir, a renowned storyteller from Northern Ireland. And there I learned about the craft of storytelling, and the first story that I ever told was the one that I just shared with you, the one from my hometown of Zug. And the second story that I ever told is the one that I'm about to tell you now. And I first heard it in 2010, I believe, when I went to a street art / outdoor theatre festival in Zurich. There I saw a marvelous Peruvian street artist with his hand puppet, a grumpy old man. And the two of them, they told this story. And this story takes us to a time long, long ago. Long before the handsome princes and beautiful, smart princesses. Long before all the legends and all the fairy tales. It takes us back to the time when the gods were creating the world. They were shaping the globe. They formed the mountains and the valleys. They filled the lakes and rivers and streams and oceans with water. They planted all the trees, they sowed all the flowers. They put the sun in the sky and the moon and carefully pinned each individual star around them. And then, when there was light, you would think that they created the humans, but no, they didn't. First, they created all the vices and all the virtues. They were all there. Joy, anger, fear, running around because there were no people that they could inhabit. But one day, the vices and the virtues, they became awfully bored of the frolicking in the fields, and so they all gathered in a meadow to discuss what they could do. And perhaps you too have attended a meeting that wasn't really well organized, so you know exactly what happened to the vices and the virtues. They were sitting there, looking at the sky, looking at the ground, looking at each other, not knowing what to do, until someone spoke up. I have an idea. That was creativity. Let's play a game. A game? Nah, that's boring, said boredom. But enthusiasm was so enthusiastic that all of the others caught on. And so they decided to play hide and seek. It was then that madness decided to chime in. Hide and seek, that is awesome. You all, I have an idea too. You all go hide yourselves, and I will come and find you. The vices and virtues, they agreed because no one was really keen on seeking madness anyway. And so the game began. Madness covered his eyes, began to count 1, 10, 5, 26. And all the vices and the virtues, they dispersed. Finding a place to hide now wasn't as easy as you might think. Indecision, for example. Indecision found a tall wall with bushes to the left and bushes to the right. So he was sitting on top of that wall thinking, the bushes to the left, they're really bushy, but no, the bushes to the right, they're bushy. Left, right, or hope. Hope got into a terrible storm with thunder and lightning and lashing rain and howling wind, but hope held on. And she said to herself, I can make this through. This too shall pass. I can make it to the end of that storm. And she did. And when the storm had passed, there was blue sky and a bright, shining rainbow. A rainbow, said Hope. What a delightful place to go and hide. And so Hope went to hide in the rainbow. Madness, at some stage, decided that he was done counting. I'm coming! He yelled, opened his eyes, turned around, and there was Sloth. who had been too lazy to go hide himself, so that was an easy one. Another easy one was Indecision, who was still sitting on the top of that high wall with bushes left, right. A little bit harder was Triumph. Triumph was hiding at the tippy top of the tallest mountain, proud and strong. But at least that was two birds with one stone, because Envy was right there, crouching in Triumph's shadow. So one by one, Madness found them all. All except for one. What do you think? Which vice or virtue remained hidden? What was that? Exactly! It was love. Wherever Madness looked, love was nowhere to be found. He searched on top of the highest mountain. He searched at the bottom of the lowest valley. He searched in all four directions of the sky. Love was nowhere to be found. Now the sun was already setting low in the sky, and Madness knew that if he didn't find love by the time the sun went down, he'd have lost. Now Madness wouldn't have that now, would he? And so Madness was growing, well, increasingly mad, and he was running through a deep, dark forest with all the other vices and virtues trailing behind him, when they reached a clearing. And on that clearing was a rose bush, more beautiful than any rose bush you have ever seen. The petals of its blossoms were shimmering like velvet in the light of the setting sun, and there was a scent in the air so sweet that even ill humor couldn't help but smile. And it was then that Madness knew that he had found love. Love, come out! He yelled. Silence. Love, come out or I'll get you! Love, being a little foolish as she sometimes is, still didn't reply. Then Madness, he picked up a pointy branch from the ground, and he charged towards that rose bush, and she started stabbing it. Come out, love, come out! Ah! Madness dropped the stick, and all the vices and virtues went, ah! When Love emerged from that rose bush, her hands covering her face with blood trickling down her cheeks. The pointy branch had gone right through her eyes. Madness was inconsolable. He threw himself to the ground. He pleaded with the gods to undo what he had done, but to no avail. Love just stood there, blood mixed with tears trickling down her cheeks. And when Madness at last got up and dusted himself off, he reached out a hand to Love and he said, Love, I am so sorry for what I have done. And I know that I can't undo it, so let me help you. Give me your hand and I will be your guide from now on. I will show you where things are. Love didn't say anything. She just grabbed Madness's hand, and under the complete and utter silence of the other vices and virtues, Love and Madness disappeared in the forest, hand in hand. They are walking together to this day, and now you know why love is blind. And wherever you find love, madness is usually very close behind. I'm coming to the last story in my set. It's a story that was given to me by a storytelling friend here in Switzerland when I was looking for stories that would suit the spirit of the current time. Because you know that they say that stories are the gemstones of our inner treasure chest. Stories and memories both. And in times when you're feeling down or a bit hopeless or just need something to brighten our days, it's so good to have a rich inner treasure chest that we can open and take out a gemstone and hold it up against the light and find comfort and hope and inspiration in its sparkle, at least for a little while, until we need to take out the next gemstone and then the next and the next. And that's why we keep sharing stories. Now this last story is about a queen who lived once upon a very long time ago, and that queen had 3 daughters. The oldest daughter was very smart. The second, incredibly hardworking. And the youngest, well, the youngest, she had the most beautiful laugh. And when the 3 princesses had reached a certain age, the queen called them to her. She handed each a beautiful hand-embroidered bag. And she said to them, "My daughters, the time has come for you to go out into the world and learn about life. I am giving you my most precious gift. In each of these bags, I have put as much of my time as I could fit. Use it wisely and come back in a year to share what you have done with it." The 3 princesses, they kissed and hugged their mother and each other goodbye, and off they went. The oldest, the smart one, she immediately devised a plan on how to make the most profit with the time that she was given. So deep in thought, she was marching along when she heard a whisper, "Come, spend some time with us." She ignored it and walked on. "Come, spend some time with us." She heard the whisper again, this time more insistently. So she stopped and looked around, and weren't the flowers by the roadside looking up at her and whispering, "Come, spend some time with us." "No, I haven't got the time," said the oldest princess. "I have not got the time to stop and smell the flowers. Time is money, and it is not to be wasted." And off she went. The second princess, the one who was incredibly hardworking, she quickly found some work that she could dedicate herself to, and she was laboring away when a ball rolled between her feet. She looked up and saw a child, and the child said to her, Come and play with me." "No, I haven't got the time," she cried. "There is so much to do, and today I already have to do the work of tomorrow." "Then will you come and play with me tomorrow?" "No, there is so much to do, and tomorrow I already have to do the work of the day after tomorrow. Now, shoo, off you go. Stop stealing my time." She turned her back and went back to her work. The youngest princess, the one with the beautiful laugh. She hadn't gone far when she reached a pond with ducks and water lilies, and there, sitting in the sunshine on a bench, were 3 old men. They were silent because they had already told each other everything they knew and couldn't think of anything new to say. And when they saw the youngest princess, they cried, "Hey, you! Come and spend some time with us." "Of course," laughed the youngest princess. "As it happens, I've just been given a bag full of time, and I will gladly spend some with you. So the old man, they scooted over and she sat down next to them and she asked them questions about their lives, and time passed, and when at last the princess left, she could hear the old man laughing for a long time, because suddenly they remembered things they'd almost forgotten. Time passed, the year went by, and the day came when the queen opened the gates of the castle to welcome back her daughters. Instead of the oldest daughter, only a messenger came to deliver a bouquet of flowers and a note that read, "Dearest mother, I am well. I have used my time well, but coming back would take too long, it would cost too much time, so I better stay here. Just know I am well. Your loving daughter." The second daughter, she came in a rush, babbling about the work that she'd done, the work that she had yet to do, and above all, the work that was piling up now that she was gone. And it was very clear that in her heart, she'd already departed again long before she'd properly arrived. And as for the youngest daughter, she was late because she stopped on the way to pick flowers for her mother. And when she came back and gave the bouquet to the queen said, "Oh, child, have you got so much time left to spare?" "Of course," laughed the youngest princess, "because you haven't told me the secret of this bag full of time. You see, I found that it replenishes itself. So the more time I spend, the more I get in return." "Oh, child," the queen smiled. "My dear child, you are the only one who truly experienced the gift of time." Thank you so much for listening, for spending this time with me in the World Storytelling Cafe. If you've enjoyed it and you'd like to show your appreciation, there is a virtual hat below in which you can drop some real coins. The proceeds of my performance will go to some storytellers who have no source of income at the moment because, as you all know, all events are cancelled. All contributions are very, very much appreciated, but they're, you don't have to. We will keep telling stories anyway because that's what we love to do. Well, and now all that's left to say for me is that I wish you open eyes and an open heart so you continue to see the magic that is all around us. And may your days be filled with love and good madness. And if you hit a storm, I wish you a very full inner treasure chest with gemstones that you can take out and hold against the light to bring you some delight and ease. And may we all make the most of the time that we've been given. And in that spirit, thank you very much and live happily ever after.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just been listening to the most magnificent storyteller, and just like if you come into a pub or a bar if you happen to be in America and there's no door charge, but there's a tip jar or there's a hat, we'd really appreciate it, because our tellers, they've got no way to earn at the moment. We'd really appreciate it if you could reach into your pocket and you could drop a little something into the hat. Thank you. And to do that, you have to go to the website, World Storytelling Cafe.